He's an author, a motivational speaker, an entrepreneur, and he calls himself the Dreamer. We have the one and only Jared Green on the Blueprint with us today. Let's get started.
You're listening to The Blueprint with respected entrepreneur and journalist Brandon Armant. He's talking with other entrepreneurs, professionals, and community leaders about the hurdles they've encountered in their careers, the lessons they've learned, and their blueprint for success. And now, here's your host, Brandon Armant.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Blueprint. I am your host, Brandon Armant, and as I said earlier, I am joined by the one and only Jared Green, better known as Jared the Dreamer. Jared, welcome to The Blueprint, man.
Man, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Now, let me let you guys know, Jared, I know Jared very well. Jared is like a little brother to me. In fact, he is my little brother. We talk all the time, every day. And this interview on the Blueprint has been a long time coming. We were supposed to do this interview, about a year or so, over a year ago?
Well, we brought it up a year ago, but especially maybe about 10 months ago. I don't think we hit a year yet. We didn't do that bad.
Okay, all right. Well, we haven't actually hit a year. It's just been about 10 months since we were supposed to do it. But I'm happy to have you on. We have so much to talk about. And in reality, as we've actually done a lot of these interviews already, all the conversations that we've had, just about life and entrepreneurship and the blueprint for success and everything that we're getting ready to talk about, but we've just never recorded it. I guarantee you, if we recorded all the conversations that we've had, we would have about we'd probably be hitting our 150th show. We'd probably be going into syndication right now. But this is being recorded, and everybody's going to get an opportunity to hear about Jared, the Dreamer, and everything that he has. So I'm very glad to have you on the show today, man. So as I told you guys earlier, he is an author, a motivational speaker. He's an entrepreneur. He has his own nonprofit. He's written a children's book. Gave 1,000 of those books away to children in his community where he's from, New Orleans, Louisiana. He's received a proclamation from the New Orleans City Council, accolades, and been in national publications, national magazines, and national articles and television shows. He's had an opportunity to go meet President Obama and fly out after a contest. He's done all of this, but he's done all of this, and he's only 25 years old. And when he did a lot of this last year, he was 24 years old. He's accomplished so much in such a short amount of time. And that's why so many people are talking about Jared the Dreamer today, man. So I'm proud of you. Proud of you, man.
Thank you so much.
So if you don't know Jared the Dreamer, I want you guys to make sure you go and look him up. All you got to do is Google him, and you'll find out information about him. But before you go do that, since you are listening to the Blueprint, you're going to find out a little bit about him on the Blueprint. So, man, go ahead and tell us about Jared the Dreamer, and who is Jared the Dreamer?
Wow. So Jared the Dreamer.
Yeah, raise that mic up so that they can hear you.
Okay, cool. Well, my name is Jared the Dreamer. I'm a dreamer because at one point I couldn't see. I couldn't see the greatness that was on the inside of myself. That led me to really wanting to figure out what was for me. I grew up in the lower 9th Ward in New Orleans, Louisiana, like we already stated. Always volunteered, always did community service, always was lending and helping hand. I was always the help. The difference between me and a lot of other people is that I actually really enjoyed it. Like, this is what I love to do. But no one said that I could be successful by volunteering. No one ever said that I can be successful by doing community service work. I never knew what that would lead to. But in essence,
and you guys that are watching, he's stopping. He's getting a little emotional as he's talking right now. But go ahead.
I just really came a long way. So when I think about the fact that at 15 years old, I really wanted to know who I was, but I really wanted to know how could I help people over a longer span of time. I really didn't want to start when I was 40 years old. I asked God to show me at a very young age who I was, especially because everyone around me seemed to have an idea. For me, all I did all day long was either read books or I played basketball. If I watched TV, it was either SportsCenter or CNN. that didn't really blend well with a lot of people that I was around. And of course, my mom used to tell me that I was normal, but she likened my mind to a genius. But that was never really good enough for me because, again, the world said that these certain standards was success. And I wanted to find out what success was for me. So
there's a lot that that you have endured in your 25 years from, almost committing suicide, thinking about it, going through depression, to from that, down period in your life, to receiving a proclamation, as we said earlier, from the New Orleans City Council meeting President Barack Obama, which I envy you for that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But so we're going to talk about some of those low periods in your life and how you got out of them.
Okay.
But let's first talk about some of the great success that you've had recently. So last year, you decided that you wanted to give 1,000 books away to children, underprivileged children,
yes, sir.
In the New Orleans community. And it was a task for a 24-year-old that many people thought you would not be able to accomplish. It was just, you call yourself Jared the Dreamer, and this was just a dream that you had. Keep dreaming, young man. Right? But you were able to do that and actually got recognized for that. Tell us a little bit about that.
And so one of the things that I will say is that I didn't become Jared the Dreamer until I was able to bring my dreams to life, until I learned the ability to manifest. That 1,000-copy giveaway was a vision I had as soon as I completed the book. Because in the moment that I no longer really wanted to be here no more, and I know we're going to get into that, that's when God spoke to me. It wasn't an individual. It wasn't someone coming knocking on the door. It was me by myself in an apartment that I was already losing, the inability to take care of my son, the disconnect with my family that really, really drove me into that state of depression over time, though. And I promised God when I wrote that book that I would make sure as many young people didn't have to feel the way that I felt. And I believe the only reason why I didn't commit suicide was because I knew to talk to God. In other words, I knew about the greatness that lived on the inside of me.
So let's talk about this for a second. I know I said we were going to talk about the depression state later
right,
on.
Now that we're here.
And we'll get more into that because I really want to talk about that because there are a lot of people who deal in battle with that. Mm-hmm. That's not even in their 20s. They're much older, and some of them have been dealing with it. Some of them are younger, and they need to hear from you to hear how you were able to overcome that. So we'll talk about that, but. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's talk about the overall time when you were in that state of depression, because that actually has helped shape everything that you've accomplished. So talk about that time.
Everything that I am, I think that life has different stages, and I think that what I liken it to is that it's a birthing process to everything, and everything is like a seed that is planted. So this seed was planted within me a long time ago. But because of that journey that I started when I left my home, from the very first day at 17 years old when I walked out the door and my mom was right behind me and she didn't really want me to go, but she knew she had to let me go, I was affected from that moment. And I walked into a lifestyle that really took my life over, in a sense. And it was almost like it was inviting me in, like something was ushering me in.
A lifestyle that wasn't pleasant. So,
no.
So just to be clear, you're 17 years old. You're leaving from your house. At that time, you had to enroll yourself in Dillard University.
Well, I had two options when I left my home. I remember it was either the Covenant House or my friend Steve's house. And I thank God for Steve every day because they did open that door for me. And at the point where I was at Steve's house, I had two options. It was either the National Guard or college. And because of the way I left my home and the frustration that I felt, I hadn't given myself time to even take the ACT. I didn't give myself time to really prepare myself for school. So everything that I had to figure out in regards to school and enrollment and admissions and everything like that, I had to figure that out on my own. And so at the point to where I was with the National Guard, or at least trying to take those steps, I was only maybe one step away or two steps away from being in the National Guard until I got a letter that said that I had been accepted into Dillard University. So I had only taken the ACT once, and I scored, I think like a 23 on it or something like that, which was enough to get tops. The night before, I had went party and was turning up. I took that test at 8 in the morning, and that's when something really struck me then, too. I said, man, I'm really smarter than I really think I am, in that sense. And I was able to take those steps into Dillard University. But, of course, having to figure out financial aid was a barrier. Having to figure out where I would live was a barrier in result of financial aid or lack of ability to utilize my parents to get funding.
So from there, you actually enrolled as a homeless student.
Yeah, I enrolled as a homeless student. Anytime anybody asked me where my parents was, I said I didn't have any. Because the minute I opened that door, it was going to be sending me away from where I thought I was supposed to be. And because I thought I was supposed to be there, and just like typical me, I always say I'm stubborn in the right direction, I guess.
Stubborn, you are. Yeah.
If I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do, I'm going to do that and deal with the results later. And so I did walk into that building essentially all by myself. And I thank God for Dr. Toya Barnes-Teamer, actually, because when I walked in there, they told me that they couldn't find enough funding for me to be in school. And they definitely, even if they could find enough funding, they had nowhere for me to stay. They had no dorm rooms available. And that was very discouraging because the lines were very long. And again, being by myself, I needed to try to figure out a way to get there because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And so I used to sag my pants, I had my earrings in, like I was just, I'm out the night. Well, I was doing what I do.
Totally different look than what you have right now. If you guys if you're not watching us on video and you're listening to this, Jared is in a full suit. His pants is not sagging right now. So totally different look from where you are now.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I would even let people know that is, it was a part of my journey. I thought I had swag, though, so it wasn't just like I was just mimicking anybody. That's really just how I really like to dress, although it did not paint a very nice picture of myself. I was walking around the Dillard University gym. I remember like it was yesterday, and I must have walked past Dr. Teamer, and she stopped me, and she said, or she actually followed me. Now that I think about it, she followed me back to my seat because she didn't stop me. I saw her as I was walking past see me, but I went back to my seat and she must have followed me, came on the side of me and lifted up my shirt a little bit and said, "Why are your pants sagging? Why are you dressing like that? Pick your pants up." I said, "Okay." And I just picked my pants up. She said, "What you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm trying to get in school." And she looked at me. And of course, I look young now, so I looked even younger then. And she said, "Well, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm trying to get in school." She said, "Where's your parents?" I said, "I don't have any." And I said, "But they told me that they don't have any money for me to be in school." And so they also told, I said, "I need a place to stay." And they said they don't have any more rooms. And so long story short, Dr. Tima must have went into that room and came back out. Didn't have to wait in the long line. She skipped me right to the front. All of a sudden, there was some funding because doors open. And then she walked me through the other lines and got me through. And by the time I turned around, it was her and a new guy by the rooms, Mr. Cameron. I thank God for Mr. Cameron, who actually housed me years later when I was still battling homelessness. They had a key in their hand for a dorm room. And that's when I realized that there's power in manifestation.
There's power in manifestation, and that's called favor as well. You have a lot of favor in your life, and you guys that are listening, you will, as we finish this interview, and by the time we get to the end, when we talk about Jared and all of his accomplishments, you'll see just what I mean when I say you have favor on your life. God has favored you tremendously. So you're at Dillard. You finally get enrolled in school. You're enrolled as a homeless student, and
nobody knows this.
Nobody knows this, and everything is going well for you.
No, I've already at that point started creating voids within myself.
What do you mean by that?
So I liken voids to physically like potholes. something that you see and you can't really avoid seeing, but you can kind of avoid dealing with at the same time. And so a void is something that needs to be dealt with at some point because the hole only gets deeper. And I was creating a void within myself, and voids can also be created by something I used to do, which is festering, as opposed to really saying how I felt, because I felt like I couldn't, and as opposed to really seeking the help I needed. I thought that was something that only crazy people did, and so I started falling into this hole. That's the best way that I could describe it. It was a hole, and at this point, it was my foot that was in the hole, but you can still see my foot to describe where I was in that moment, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So you're starting to get into this state, developing holes or these potholes, voids, as you described it. I like potholes. In New Orleans, we know all about potholes.
Well, and I call them spiritual potholes. So, I mean, I didn't want to go too deep into that, but definitely what happens on the inside must eventually and will manifest itself on the outside too as well. So as you're dealing with voids on the inside, all of a sudden the road moving in the world becomes not so straight either and not so clear. So
you're there, and then you're something monumental happens in your life, something that stops you, some may say, but has also been a blessing at the same time. Tell us what that is.
It depends on what part of the journey we're talking about.
There's probably a lot of parts of that, right?
A lot of parts that really did change my life.
Tell me
in
about
that
it.
sense. So, I mean, well, I guess I think about when I was at Dillard University, and of course, me being a homeless student, I think it was Hurricane Gustav at that time. And so we had to evacuate as an entire class. And I think that I pray no one got injured in that storm, but that storm did change my life because it sent us to Centenary College in Shreveport. And that's when I think I started really opening up a lot, because I was no longer just at a school that's within my city. I'm now in a different place. I hadn't really gone anywhere by myself at this point. And so there was a young lady named Marguerite Washington, Margie, and I loved her. I'm not even going to lie, I did. And I thought that I was going to get to the school and just have a bunch of girls. But this girl was smart, intelligent. She liked to do the things I like to do, turn-up-wise. And we walked hand in hand all around Centenary for that entire time, like really developed a bond and a relationship. And then once we got back to school, she ended up being murdered. And so I think that changed everything about me from that moment, because, again, I went in there with a certain mindset, of course, a little bit shy, but of course, being a young man, I'm like, I'm about to go have a good time. And then I met this girl who was just like me, and was okay having a good time and being smart. And then her life got taken away. And that always did hurt me, because once we got back from Centenary, I started wanting to be that young man again. And as opposed to, and it's not my fault, of course, but as opposed to paying attention to what love was in that moment, I started creating more voids within myself. And by not acting upon what love was, because I feared it so much, she ended up passing away, and now that hole grows a little bit bigger. And so in that sense, just walking along that journey, I ended up, from that moment, running for Mr. Freshman. And, I did that. I needed a confidence booster. So in that sense.
And it I'm sure it was a confidence booster for you, because you won.
Yeah, I did. And I had never won anything before. So so me winning that position against two guys who had already been there during the summer, who had already developed relationships, I did it my way. I posted flyers everywhere in places that no one thought that they could even find them. They had girls in an all-girls dorm room who copied my flyers, put kissy faces on them, and put them all over almost got me excluded. What is it called?
Yeah.
Disqualified from the election, because they thought that I was, illegally in the girls' dorm room.
So let's fast forward for a moment for the sake of time. So that's going on, and you're Mr. Freshman. You're popular, obviously, on campus, and everybody likes you, and it seems like especially the girls, because you got parties. Kissy faces all on you. You're throwing parties, and you're Jared Green, and you're doing it. Nobody knows you're enrolled there as a homeless student, and
nobody knows I'm depressed.
Nobody knows that you're depressed, which is where I'm getting at. And you're doing a good job of hiding it. But you were still breaking down and tearing down. And then what happens?
So
because you didn't actually graduate from Dillard. So no, what happened? Why, if you were achieving so much there, what happened to make you have to drop out?
After I ran for Mr. Freshman and won, I'm gonna be honest, and I don't always tell people this, but I knew that my time there was limited, because it was only so long that I could survive there, and it was only because they started switching from regular textbooks that you can share to digital versions of everything. And so again, I started really separating myself from classes and stuff then. But then I actually had my son. I found out that I would be a dad that second year at school, and that changed everything for me, because then again, as happy as I wanted to be, that's not how I thought it would happen. I thought a lot of people were disappointed in me, and they expressed that they were disappointed in me. It wasn't the reaction that I thought I would get. I needed help and was told that essentially I would be doing it on my own. And from there on, I had to learn how to be a dad. So that changed everything. I ended up going into my dorm room for a whole semester and not even like going to class. Like I just failed. I just started flunking. I just let it go. So
you're a freshman.
I'm a sophomore at that time.
You're a sophomore in college. So you're what, like 20, 21 years old, something like that, around that age.
About 20.
About 20 years old.
20.
Yeah.
19, 20.
And you're already going through the state of depression, and
the hole's getting bigger.
Hole is getting bigger. You have your son, which is a blessing.
It is.
But you don't get the reaction from people, and everyone says they're disappointed in you. Keep in mind, at this point, they still don't even realize that you are battling with this depression. No. And so then things continue to unravel, and then you drop out of college. Yeah. And you go to get a job and start making money so that you can help to support your son.
And I couldn't really make enough money, so I just did what I had to do.
Talk to us. What do you mean when you say you did what you had to do?
I did what I used my brain, but in a way that wasn't very pleasing. In that sense, I had a lot of money at one point. I was bringing in at least almost $2,000 a week sometimes, just by just doing whatever I needed to do to get it, and getting it from wherever places I can without saying too much, because there's a lot of people who helped me on my journey and covered and protected me. Favor isn't fair. A lot of things eventually, of course, caught up to me. If I ever took anything from anybody, not literally, everything that I bought was then taken away. Everything that I thought I had earned the wrong way, down to the last sock, left me. So in that sense, I wasn't able to provide for my son with a regular job the way I really wanted to. At least the pressure seemed like I wasn't doing good enough. So I started doing whatever I can to get it. And then I found myself just in more and more trouble, and so
more and more trouble doing things that you shouldn't do, getting in trouble with the police, getting in trouble with the law, and paying your time and your dues for that. But then again, things are unraveling, and then you fall into a state of depression, where you begin to think about suicide and committing suicide and killing yourself. But then God spoke to you and turned everything around. And then that's how you became a children's book author, and success started. And listen, we're going to talk to you, about that and those things. But we're going to go to commercial break real quick. And when we come back, we're going to talk with Jared about how things begin to turn around for him. Because this is the blueprint, and we are talking about your blueprint for success. And so we want to start getting into the success that you've achieved over time. Y'all, we are talking with Jared the Dreamer, the one and only. Make sure you guys go look him up, and we're going to learn a little bit more from him when we come back. You're listening to The Blueprint.
You're listening to The Blueprint with Brandon Armant. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Blueprint. Here's your host, Brandon Armant.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Blueprint. I am your host, Brandon Armant, and we are talking with Jared the Dreamer. Listen, he is a children's book author. He's an entrepreneur, the founder and executive director of his own nonprofit, Sunny with a Chance of Love. He's had an opportunity to go and fly out and meet President Obama after winning a contest, and received a proclamation from his city council, the city of New Orleans. And he's done all of this, accomplished all of this, and he's only 25 years old. And most of this he did when he was 24 years old. So you've actually hit some of my bucket list, because I've always wanted to meet President Obama, and I never have. What'd you say?
When it rains, it pours, and you know we will. So
yeah.
Well, we will.
Well, I told you guys at the top of the show, Jared is my little brother, and so we joke all the time. One day I will be president of the United States, and then he'll get a chance to get in the White House, and then
all I need is access.
You need what? You need access to what?
To the White House.
Well, you will get the access when I'm president of the United States. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Just hold tight.
I just have to make sure I have to repeat that to you. I don't want you to get a little big head. You're president,
I will be president. Well, don't stop talking to me that way, or you're going to be banned from Pennsylvania Avenue before I even get there. So calm down a little bit. But no, man, I'm proud of your success and everything that you have accomplished thus far, and your future is bright, and you have so much more to accomplish, because again, as I told you guys, he's only 25 years old. So he is only at the peak of everything that God has in store for him. And I guarantee you, Jared, that eyes have not seen and ears have not heard all that God has in store for you. Your mindset is great. We didn't touch on that you are a man of God, a man of faith. People might have heard it as you've been talking before. But let's go back a little bit. So we've been talking about, your journey to success. And, we talked about your state of depression, and you were in a state of depression and needed to get money to raise your son. Mm-hmm. That you had at a very young age. You're about 20 or so years old. And you started doing anything you could to make money, including a lot of illegal activity. And you served your time. You went to jail for it. But you were out there doing some rough stuff. Tell us about that.
Right. So that's even interesting. So it's interesting because everything I actually went to jail for, I didn't do. So that was, I don't know how. That's odd, right?
So everything that you did, that was a crime.
Right.
You did not go to jail for,
no.
But what you went to jail for were the crimes that you did not commit.
No, and it was always me being involved in something I had no business being involved in. But that's the thing about that lifestyle. I think when you're in the clouds, you can't see which way is left and which way is right. You have no real direction, no sense of direction, especially because I had no current connection to God. So that's like a signal, and it can tell you left from right and right from wrong and yes and no. And if you don't have that connection, then you might find yourself in a position, knowingly or unknowingly, getting in some trouble that you didn't expect to face. And so for myself, one of those turning points, one of those troubled times for me was when I was charged for armed robbery that I didn't even commit. What I actually did was I saved a friend of mine's life. Who had reached out to me after he had been shot. And of course, me being or him being what I thought was a friend at the time, I figured that he's shot. He's the victim. There's no reason in the world why anybody would ever call me that's been shot and I end up getting in trouble. That's not the thought that comes to your head. Mm-hmm. So after responding to his call and finally reaching him, I remember like it was yesterday, getting him into the car, literally almost dying myself, about to flip over the bridge, bust a tire, trying to get to the hospital, The New Orleans East Hospital wasn't completely finished just yet. And that's where we were. We were in the East, and I had to get him all the way downtown. So it went from him thinking he was shot in his shoulder to the nurse opening his jacket and saying that he had been shot in his chest. And from the moment, I thought that I was a hero, that I had saved his life. But I quickly went to zero because it went from good job, or I'm not even sure anybody ever told me good job, to police checking my car, a detective talking to me as if he already knew what I had done, even suggesting that I had set the guy up. And I said, wait, when I get upset, I get very articulate. And so I looked one way, but what was coming out of my mouth was another way. And I remember him saying that I was a conniving little manipulative little bastard, and stuff like that. And I was like, I know how you feel, sir, but are you going to arrest me or not? And, long story short, they put out a warrant for my arrest and said I was armed and highly dangerous. Talk to the cops nicely, folks. So
yeah, because
I mean, even if you're right, I guess in that sense, because I didn't see that really coming. In that sense, I had never touched a weapon or a gun or anything like that. And it's just interesting because I ended up finding out that he had told a story that wasn't the truth. And so I was facing some time in jail, like years in jail. And if it wasn't for Judge Byron Williams, I would probably have faced time for a crime that I did not commit. It took me losing my job at Coach, where I sold $450,000 in product in a matter of about 5 months. I was the top male salesman at the store. I had to lose my job at K Jewelers, selling about $15,000 in product a month. All these things that I was trying to do to better myself and to provide for my son kept crashing. So it's not like I was just doing stuff just to do it. I was doing stuff because I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, you were trying to make money the legal way, but every time you tried, the barrier kept coming.
And they kept labeling me a criminal, which is crazy because that's what actually got me into City Hall as an intern. So it's just really, which is probably where I was supposed to be in the beginning anyways. I couldn't apply for an internship or a job there, but this barrier that eventually would be removed got me in the door.
So guys, listen, Jared has such an interesting story, and unfortunately for time, we can't get all the way into the story. But what I want to do is I want to when this episode airs, I want to put out a what do you call that when you have like extra in New Orleans we call it lanyard. But anyway, I want to put something out later where we just kind of allow you to just talk about all of that, because there are a lot of people who need to hear that, and they need to hear that story. But it's going to take longer than the time that we have for this show today. So we're going to put that, if you're listening now, be on the lookout for that lanyard. In New Orleans, we say lanyard. If you're not from New Orleans, then that means that's a little bit extra.
Right.
Right.
Bonus features.
Bonus features. Yeah, that's it. We're gonna put a bonus. We're gonna put that's what I was looking for. When you get the DVDs.
Right.
Wait, are there DVDs anymore?
Right. I knew what you meant. I'm happy I knew what you meant.
Yeah, right. Cause see, I'm older. He's a little baby, so he's probably like DVDs. So I remember looking that up in history class.
I mean, we use videotapes, VCS. We did that.
You use VCS?
I'm 94 still.
You were born in 94?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you know about VCS. Okay, I guess I'm not that much older.
I remember putting it in the thing. But then DVDs didn't come too far after that, so it wasn't too long. Everything changed fast for me, that's through the years. From 94 to 2004, a lot changed.
So we're going to have some bonus features.
Right.
We're going to have some lanyard and to this and a sequel and allow you to just talk a little bit about that. So let's fast forward again for the sake of time and talk about the part where you in your life where you came up with writing this children's book, and you're in a state of depression. You've been in trouble with the law, accused of crimes that you didn't commit. You're thinking about committing suicide. You've been thinking about it a lot. But then God speaks to you,
right?
And what does He tell you?
Well, at that moment I was on the floor, I told God that I didn't want to be here anymore, and that essentially that I was coming home. And God told me that it wasn't my time. He asked me what was I willing to do now that I wasn't willing to do before to get to where I need to go. And I told God that I was willing to do anything, but I did not see how I can get there. And he told me that if I stood up, that he would give me the ability to dream again. And so from that moment, I got up and I turned on The Lion King, born in 94. That movie came out in 94.
That's my favorite movie of all time.
That is also my favorite movie. And I started writing the words to this book that went like, there's a creature in my belly, and I know this is true. Oh, my son, that's just the greatness on the inside of you. But I feel it. I hear it. It tickles me too. Yes, I know the feeling, and I feel it too. That's just the greatness on the inside of you. And essentially what this book leads to is that is my conversation that I was having with God when I was on that floor. And he was explaining to me that he can show me better than he could ever tell me. And so from that moment, man, I said, okay, well, I finished the words and I don't know what to do next. I remember Googling, how do you make a book? And for the most part, that response is you just write it. But I had to figure out the steps on how to actually make a book. And it took me a year and 3 months. But I finally released that book. But I learned how to walk something out. Again, I'm learning how to manifest. I'm realizing I have the ability to manifest what comes to my heart and into my mind, and then eventually transfers into the physical. Everything is a seed that's planted, and that's what I can say now. But of course, I was just learning that along the journey of creating it and releasing it. And
that book is called The Creature in My Belly.
There's a creature in my belly.
Wow. As many times as I've seen that book and read that book and talked about you, I actually just messed up the title. You know what? That was done purposely so that I can say it again.
Right.
There's a creature in my belly. That's the name of the book. Tell us what the book is about. I mean, I know you just kind of said some of the words, but overall, what is the book about?
Well, there's greatness on the inside of every single one of us. In fact, the greatness within you is as limitless as the universe around you. And that is what that book is all about, finding purpose. Purpose is not a job title or a salary expectation, but it's who you are and what you are to people on a day-to-day basis. And what is success to you as well? Success is defined by the consumer, and you should never measure your success on anybody else's ruler. This book is guiding kids to know something at a young age. From 0 to 5, 95% of a child's brain is fully developed. From between the age of 5 all the way to about 18 years old, the question that is prevalent in someone's mind is, who am I and where am I going? The reason why I'm still alive today is because I knew who I belong to. The reason why I'm alive is because I knew about the greatness on the inside of me. But I heard a story, and quite a few stories, about people who didn't know about that greatness on the inside of them, and they did commit suicide, or survivors. I heard a survivor story who said that, just like myself, except I didn't go through with it, I decided to speak out loud to God. The minute his hands left that rail on that San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, he regretted it. He said on his way down, he said he really wanted everyone to know that he didn't really want to die. Mm-hmm. And if that didn't really align with what my thoughts was at that time, I don't know what did. Because all I felt like I was screaming and no one could hear me. But God heard me. So
God heard you. He always hears us when we're speaking, and thank God that you listened to Him and that you heard back from Him. But when you wrote this book, you didn't just write it because God told you to write it. You wrote it also thinking that you would be leaving this earth, and you were writing it for
my son Jace. And I thought that is true. I thought I was going to leave it behind. So that is that part of the story. I still was going to write the book and just kill myself. But that's when God said, well, you got to finish the book. And I'm like, I guess I do have to finish the book. I guess Jace really couldn't finish this book for me. It gave me a reason to be alive, and it gave me vision. And one thing I say to people is that if I were to ask you what animal in the jungle would you be, what would you say?
I'd be a lion.
You'd be a lion, right?
Yeah.
And if I was to ask my boy Nathaniel what kind of animal he would be, he might be an eagle. But in this moment, I realized that the best animal I could possibly be is a donkey. It's not the sexiest animal in the jungle. It's not the most attractive. In fact, not sure is even in the jungle. But in that sense, you get my point.
I don't. Explain
that
it
is
to
not.
me.
Wait, I'm getting to the point. But donkeys, I don't think are in the jungle. That's.
Oh,
I don't know. But this is the point. Donkeys follow that carrot. So in other words, God gives us all vision. And a lot of us aim to be other animals. So we try to fly before it's our time, or we try to roar and go eat some animals. We get very distracted along this journey that is life because we're the king of the jungle. Pride. Martin Luther King calls it the drum major instinct. Or we can fly higher than others, right? But I don't mind walking on a steady path with a vision, because the guarantee that the donkey knows is when it reaches the desired destination that he will eat. So if God has already given me that guarantee and he's already showed me a vision and all I have to do is walk, why am I doing more than what's necessary? Why am I wasting time doing anything else except following this vision? Over the course of that year and 3 months, I sat at Pontilly Coffee every day, sometimes 9-10 hours a day. Didn't do anything but talk to people, networked. But
that's how I met you.
Well, and that is how we met. And so eventually, as I started talking to people, I started conceptualizing how to get this thing done. I gave up on it for a few months, but then I ended up walking with it and completing it.
So you complete this book, and afterwards, you have this children's book. You get your mind right, for lack of better words. You get in touch with God and realize that, committing suicide, it's not the best thing for you. It's not the best thing for your son, for your family. And then, as you said, you begin to change who you are. Would you say at that point those voids, those holes begin to kind of fill up?
I guess a little bit, as you kind of are dealing with everything you're dealing with. I mean, at that point, I knew I needed to go ahead and see a therapist. So I remember talking to Ayana with True Love Movement, which is a great movement. Everyone should check it out. She helped me out through a lot. She's actually an author herself and an artist. She does a lot. But so it was really cool for her to talk to someone who really wanted to do a book. And I remember when I brought it back to her and said, I need help getting to the next step. I remember her saying, I didn't think you were even going to bring it back. Most people don't. I admired that. And that's also within the same environment that I learned that you can't teach ambition.
So then what happens after that? You write this children's book. You give 1,000 copies away. You're recognized for that by the New Orleans City Council. You receive a proclamation. And then you enter into a contest with the Obama Foundation with an opportunity to fly to where was it?
Oakland, California.
To meet President Obama, and being the person that you are, the go-getter that you are, you actually got your book in the hands of President Barack Obama.
He has my book, and Steph Curry.
That's right.
The part I forget about, not intentionally, but it's like, man, Obama's really my idol.
Right.
If I would have grew a little taller, maybe Steph Curry, but I'm pretty sure he would say the same thing about Obama. So,
President Obama and NBA superstar Steph Curry, you got your book in their hands. So, Steph has given it to his children, and they've been able to read it. President Obama has seen it, and that must have been a pretty cool moment. What was that like to, one, meet President Obama, which a lot of people have shaken his hand and they've met him. But not too many people have been able to get something of theirs with their name on it, their picture on it, something that's valuable as well, into his hands or into Steph Curry's hands.
It was amazing, man. And one of the things that I would say is I learned, I think it's a Bible scripture that says, taste and see that the Lord is good. The fact that he gave me vision, right, is one thing. But I never got a chance to talk about when the donkey does get a chance to eat that carrot. It's a surreal feeling because you already tasted it. You already knew about it. You had spent time dreaming and thinking and all of these different things. And I thought about meeting Obama, obviously, when I was a kid, and thinking that my life had taken the journey and the toll. It had gone the way it had gone. I did not, again, see how I can get there from here. So if I come into the beginning of the year and I say, hey, Brandon, because this is actually what happened, I think I can win this thing. I know they're only picking 20 people nationwide, but I think my journey with this 1,000-copy giveaway is something that they would be interested in. And Brandon was very busy as usual, you guys. But I'm not that but let me wrap it around. Right,
thank you. This is my show. I'm about to cut your mic off.
He said, Jared, all right, man, I got an hour. City Park, I got a client right after that. so I said, all right, bro, all we need is an hour. It took us more than an hour, y'all. So that was, I'm really grateful for that, because you really believed in me in that moment. And you could have just said, I'm too busy. You could have just said no. Who knows what would have happened, right? But instead of saying no, you had no access to your cameras or any of the other stuff. We shot it on an iPhone. And by the time I got to Oakland, there were so many people saying I had the best video. Everyone there already knew my name. Like, a lot of other people, I had a lot of favor. And that's all I'll say, is that I'm grateful for the people that I met. I'm grateful for the experiences I had. And Michael Smith, who was formerly of ESPN, when I walked up to him, he already knew who I was. I was trying to tell him that I admired him because he was from the East and from New Orleans. And he said, I know who you are, the dreamer, right? You wrote that children's book. Didn't you give 1,000 away? I love everything you're doing. We're watching you. That's enough to scare you, in that sense, because I watch you on TV. At what moment are you watching me? Right. So, that was amazing.
Wow, man. So, again, I mean, listen, I'm pretty sure you guys can listen to Jared all day. I was going to say I can talk to Jared all day. I do most of the time talk to Jared all day, but you can actually see when I talk to Jared all day, Jared actually does most of the talking all day. But so tell me this, you've accomplished so much and you still have so much more to accomplish. What would you say? There are a lot of people who are looking and they say, okay, you know what? You keep bringing up that word favor. Mm-hmm. And you know what? He has favor on his life, but God doesn't. I don't have that same type of favor, so I can't accomplish what he's accomplished, and that's why I haven't. What do you tell those people?
I think that everything is built up over time, and with God, I think it's all about obedience but consistency, because it's easy to be obedient and consistent after a win, but what about when your uncle died? That's a big deal. All of a sudden, you get to blaming God instead of seeking God in the way you're supposed to. All of a sudden, you fail your test. All of a sudden, your car breaks down, and everything goes out the window. How consistent can you be through the ups and downs in life will increase your favor over time. Realizing that you have to plant the right seeds, because that's what it is all about for me. And if I was to have a message, or if I were to say that there's a message for everyone, if you really wanted to learn something, and I'll be releasing the rest of this in my book, The Purpose Seed, coming in 2020, is that you are the seed that's been planted. God has not forgotten you, and planted and buried a lot of the times can feel like the same thing. But if you realize that you are the seed, then you'll realize that, like what Les Brown talks about, you're more like a bamboo tree seed. A lot of blessings are getting ready to come, but a lot of people have given up on the dirt that they've been watering for 5 years, because that's how long it takes a bamboo tree seed to grow. 5 years you see nothing. It's pretty easy to give up after 5 years of seeing nothing, and you have the free will to give up. But if you continue this journey, and if you hear what I'm telling you, then you'll know that 2020 is the alignment of vision. I would pick that water pail up and find wherever you planted that seed, and I hope you didn't forget. But 2020 is for the year to prepare that seed. The question that Les Brown asked is, does that seed take 5 years or 30 days to grow? Because within 30 days, that seed grows over 90 feet tall. Most people, yet again, never get a chance to see their bamboo tree seed grow. Most people never get past step 1 because they have to continue to repeat, because life is filled with spiritual potholes. And even though you're trying to figure out why you can't move in life, why you're going from home to home or relationship to relationship, is because you're bouncing around in the spirit, and then it's magnifying and manifesting. So many of us are manifesting and we don't even know it. It's really, really, really not that hard. But it's all about being real and honest with yourself, which is what I really had to do. I really had to check myself. I had to tell myself what I was and wasn't doing. My biggest success in life will always be Number one, my son. But number two, the ability to love myself again. Success is defined by the consumer, and you cannot measure your success on anybody else's ruler. If you love yourself, then you will go far. If you know what type of seed you're planting, and if you're intentional about every seed you're planting, that is the purpose behind the purpose seed. The word purpose means intention. So one of the other things that I will say, and I'm sorry to continue talking, is that your thoughts and your ideas is your currency from heaven. The definition of the word currency is to flow. Many people are looking for money, but the flow is so much greater. By not writing down your thoughts and your ideas, you're depreciating the system that's set up for you to succeed. Once again, success is defined by the consumer. And if you can't love yourself, then you can't move to that next step. Sometimes it's not a degree. I don't have one. Sometimes it's not a certain salary expectation. I don't make that much money. But I am wealthy because of the moves I made and the ways that God has allowed me to invest, the ways that God has allowed me and showed me how to market, the ways that is the best business partner you could ever have. And if you start off with God as your business partner, then no matter what other partners are surrounded around you, you will always have vision. No one can hear or see your vision but you. Many people allow, and I stole this analogy from Brandon, many people allow people into their White House who doesn't belong. You have to be able to dictate who comes in and out of the door. And there's levels to this. I wanted to say something else, but y'all know what I wanted to say.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me my credit, because there's a lot that you steal from me.
I don't
you
know.
don't give me credit, and you go and you take it. And I'm watching. Listen, I'm watching social media, and I see this guy say
Don't
something.
Don't do that.
And I'm like, that sounds like me.
No, he stole it from me.
And I'm like,
promise
where
y'all.
did you get that from? That's right, you stole it from me. And so because you're on my show sitting next to me, you're going to give me my credit. So I appreciate that. So the White House analogy is my
it's his
analogy.
show. I'm gonna let him get away with whatever he wants.
Thank you.
I'm just let y'all know that he can get away with what he wants. It's his show.
No, I'm just messing with you, man. Listen, you just have a wealth of knowledge, and like I said, there's just so much more that, for the sake of time, we just can't talk with you about. But you just said some great things that I think people need to hear. There's that old gospel song that says, "He may not come when you want him," right? But he'll be there right on time.
Right on time.
And they that wait on the Lord. And so, you have to. You said something. Patience.
Consistency.
Patience and consistency. You have to be patient. You have to be consistent.
You have to be prepared. The 5 P's.
Proper
preparation prevents poor performance. This is all going to be in my book. You miss every opportunity you don't prepare for. And just like wind, you'll feel it, but you won't see it. That's why a lot of you are hurt, because you feel opportunities passing you by and you feel like it's for you, but you can't even grasp it, because like wind, you can't catch it.
And preparation is important, because sometimes we wait, and then we get discouraged, and then we stop preparing. And then when he comes and he's ready to give the blessing, we're not ready for it because we're not prepared. And then we say, well, what happened, God? He said, well, I came.
And that's the key. You said something about waiting on God and preparing, right? Let's align this vision. It's going to sound crazy when I say this, but it's almost a contradiction to wait on God, because he's only ever waiting on you. He's omnipresent. So if he's in the past, the present, and the future, what are you doing in between time while he's fighting your battles in the future? You're supposed to be prepared. But when that battle gets to you, you don't even know what to do, because you feel like you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do. But like wind, it just keeps passing you by.
Yeah. Man, so much more. Listen out for that bonus, for that sequel.
Yeah.
So we can get a little bit more knowledge from Jared. Last question for you, man, before we go. What is the main lesson you've learned from everything that you've been through, and then tie that in for me to what is the ultimate blueprint for success?
The ultimate blueprint for success is knowing that the greatness within you is as limitless as the universe without. The blueprint for success is knowing that the greatness within you is as limitless as the universe around you. And no matter where you are in your journey, whether you're down or you're high, you have to plant seeds. I used to go on the bus and give money away. I'm talking about I had 20, I took 10 and gave $5 to this one, and then spread the other ones around. And then all of a sudden somebody came and gave me $100. If you give, it'll always come back to you. Whatever you put out is always going to come back. And please remember, do not allow voids to grow within you, because they become like anchors holding you back. So if I were to give a blueprint for success, is to get on the right path. You have to address the things that is in your past and the things that are holding you back. If you fill those potholes as soon as possible, and it's never too late, then all of a sudden you'll free yourself up to do everything it is that God has for you. So just do that.
Wow, man, that's powerful. Yeah, you gotta let that old baggage,
let it go.
You gotta let it go, because it will hold you down. It will weigh you down.
Say I forgive you. I mean, just go back to that person you never said that to before.
That's
I'm
important.
sorry.
You know, and that's important too, because that releases you from yourself. And honestly, and we're gonna go, but you just said something. Honestly, you know, God can't forgive us or won't forgive us until we forgive others. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was in high school, I went to a private high school, and one of the priests said the most dangerous word in the Our Father is the word as. Mm-hmm. And he said, because we don't realize, we say, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Boom. And we say it all the time, and we just recite it, but we don't realize that in saying that, we're telling God, don't forgive us until we forgive other people. But it's not only that because we need God to forgive us. We need to do that because we need to let that go from the hurt that other people have done to us. And because you've been able to do that, because you were hurt.
Yeah.
You were hurt by so many other people. That has been one of the reasons that you've been able to elevate and let go, and doing that, loving yourself, and then everything. And man, you just got so much more to accomplish. Man, I am proud of you. Listen, when we do this sequel, when we do this bonus feature that you guys are going to get, you're going to have a chance to tap into the conversations that Jared and I always have with each other, and listen, we started doing it towards the end. We just ran out of time, but that was right. You know, that was the conversations where we just sit back and we talk, and I want to do that because I think that can help a lot of people and give a lot of people an opportunity to get healed in other ways, not just finding out success.
It's all in the technique, the little things.
Yeah,
gotta go find what the little things are. Doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. It's called insanity.
Insanity. That's very true, man.
It creates the walking dead.
That's very true. Well, listen, man. Thank you so much. And listen, before we leave, the producers are letting me know that we forgot to get your social media handle, man. If anybody wants to follow you, how can they follow you?
You literally, all you have to do is search Jared the Dreamer. Jared, like the jewelry store. The Dreamer. And if you search it, I will pop up, I promise.
Jared, like the jewelry store, Jared the Dreamer, and that's on all social media platforms. And make sure you guys also go and look to buy his book, There's a Creature in My Belly. You can find it on Amazon. And listen, get it as a holiday gift, get it as a Christmas gift, get it as a birthday gift. I've purchased at least one, maybe a couple. I don't know.
You've purchased a couple.
Okay, yeah. So
I've purchased a couple for other people too.
Yeah. It's because I know I've gotten them as gifts. My wife has gotten them as gifts for children because reading is fundamental. We don't do that anymore.
It is.
You know.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, I won't because you will. I'm trying to wrap this up. That's why you know what? You're the only guest that I've had to do a bonus feature for. That is crazy,
Child literacy,
man.
Boy. That's another topic.
Yeah. So, man, we're gonna let you go, Jared. Thank you so much. Listen, we are broadcasting live from Skyline Studios at the Executive Plaza in New Orleans East. They are our partner as we continue to bring you all of the podcasts, all of the shows that you're able to watch on the BAM Network. Actually, I'm going to give you a little hint and let you know Jared the Dreamer is going to have a show that's coming in 2020 on the BAM Network as well. So we're excited about that. And then he gets to talk all he wants.
I get to talk all I want.
Yeah.
All I want.
Yeah. Get ready, y'all. I'm trying to tell y'all. So listen, you've been listening to The Blueprint. Jared, thank you so much for coming on The Blueprint and sharing your success with us. Thank you to Nathaniel Colin Jr. And the crew and staff at BAM Communications for everything that you do to help make this show and all of our shows on the BAM Network a success. I'm Brandon Armant. Thank you for listening to The Blueprint.
This has been a BAM Network production, produced by BAM Communications. For other BAM Network shows, visit www.bamcommunications.com.